have to redefine the customer journey in a digital age. So it's not that he comes in the shop anymore. I don't know, 10 years ago, a customer spent around about 4 hours at a dealer's side to inform himself about the car to make a purchase decision. And this went down to around about an hour. So which means he gets and collects every relevant information for him up front on digital touch points, which means if we want to keep and track this, we'll have to design a digital customer journey much earlier in the process.
There was just some comments there, and it was just words, you talked about is customization, and we're actually talking about personalization. Right. And I think that's the paradigm shift that has taken place over the last maybe five years, and certainly more profoundly over the last couple of years. In probably 2011, personalisation, capitalising on past customer behaviours, is where we started to see that shift. So we used to start to introduce the customisation of websites and so on. So MySpace, I can sort of start to shift the widgets around and say this is what I want the page to look like. But now we're actually talking about the emotion, the customer experience, and how do I create a delightful experience, that wow factor. And what we're seeing now more about is that our customers, with the sort of change of the convergence of social sort of location and mobile, is allowing the customers to be in control, and that creep factor is coming down. Mm-hmm. In 2012, the research sort of showed that was probably about an 88% sort of, worry. In 2014, that's about 66%. There's much more sort of, differentiation between knowing where I am to worrying about who I am. And so, if there's people who are, sharing, clicking in, so, checking in where I'm in this store or I'm at this place and so on. So they're sharing where I am, and you can start to capitalise on that and monetise that. Yep. And facial recognition when people are coming in store. I now can tie that with the analytics that I know about you and what your past behaviour was and what you liked and what what size jeans and what type of jeans you like. So the store attendants can start to sort of show you the latest styles and sort of start to customise the experience and to personalise that experience and so on. In financial services, we're looking at this up and down the value chain in a lot more different ways. So we're not looking at sort of just buying or giving you a mortgage anymore. It's actually your dream about a new home. So how do we start to personalise that experience in the branch manager sort of knowing you in your community, and that your family is growing, and that you may be looking, you're starting to look sort of for a new home. So we know the estate agents, we know sort of the type of homes that you're looking for and so on. So we can start to pair you up with that type of experience. When you're looking for that home, we now can start to help you with the type of finances and so on. We can automate and digitise that whole experience around getting the unconditional loan to yes, so we can take you off the market much faster. Mm-hmm. When you're buying the home, now we can automate that whole experience about the removalists and so on. We can put your pets in care while you're moving. We can get you to the new community and get your kids into the new schools and help you with that. We can connect. It's about connecting and creating value all through sort of digital channels and connecting other people in the supply chain with you.
I've taken away kind of two points from this discussion. One is when we think about personalization, I think we tend to think about it as customer facing, and it's about the customer. But what we've heard here too, that it extends back up the supply chain and into the suppliers as well. So personalization is something that kind of extends within kind of the whole fabric of the business, if you will. And the other is Donna, I like what you said, is this shift towards giving a wow customer experience. is kind of what, at least on the customer side, what that personalization is really really about. And part of that is bringing in new types of services or capabilities that you would actually provide. So that kind of leads me to my next question around business models and how personalization maybe have changed the business models that you provide. Roland, you told us the personalization isn't necessarily profitable, and so
as you start,
right?
I think it's a good example. My Nike time, right? Nike has Nike ID. Anybody familiar with ID, individual design? And that's something that they started maybe 12 years ago, I think, first. And it started with a not profitable model whereby I say, could we really make an individual shoe one at a time for a consumer, right? And Nike does all its manufacturing overseas, right? So you have a long lead time to get the product to the consumer, but how you get it sort of efficient in the factory. And it started with one style, right? 2 or 3 options, right? And then see if there's a consumer demand, right? In the beginning, it's very slow and low. And is there capability to execute that? And at early stages, right, you really test the business model, you test the capabilities of the supply chain, and you test, okay, what would be the business model around it and the financial dynamics? And that took Nike a couple of years, right, to create some consumer demand as well as learn how to do it, right? And if you now go on the website and Nike ID, I think I don't know how many, but hundreds, if not thousands, of styles are now at your leisure to make customization on, right? All the range from the coloring of the shoe itself, plus inscriptions and all that. And I think where it's going is then also the performance aspects of the shoe, right? Or the apparel that they make. And now it is, I don't know exactly the percentage anymore, but a large share of the online business comes out of Nike ID, right? But it started really small and arguably not profitable. Now it is at a total different scale, right? And with the capabilities of the company growing up, it is the expectations of the consumers that they can do things like that, right? Because, I mean, 10 years ago, you wouldn't think about having an individual shoe made at a price that is affordable, right? Now you get expectations of it. And if you project that forward, right, if you can do cars customized, right, as complex as a car, why can't you have your apparel, right, or your footwear, right, or any other product that you consume on a regular basis? Why can't that be tailored to your needs, right? So I think the personalization is only going to continue, right? And the expectation of our consumers is, I need something personalized rather something generic, especially if you want to have a branded experience.
And if you can personalise the supply chain experience and the logistics to get that shoe to the customer, then they have a delightful experience to receive it, then they will do it again. Right?
Indeed, and back to Nike, if you watch the Nike investors, or if you listen to the Investors Day, I think earlier this week or last week, right, Mark Parker, CEO, talking about manufacturing techniques, right, to do 3D printing and the likes, right, to really bring the manufacturing really closer to the consumer. So that, again, for the economic model to work overseas was important for a while. Now you bring that back that you can do it in country, right, in the moment, and maybe even over time, right, in the store, right, if you so desire. So it's changing all things around how we create, manufacture, and then deliver the product. Yeah. And it's all personalization.
And how do you think that Nike made that profitable? Do you think it was scale, technological changes?
It's all of the above. It really has to be and scale and volume and technology and supply chain capabilities and evolutions of manufacturing techniques, right? Because in order for these things to work, and I think we're in the right time as far as technology goes, I think it has to be a perfect storm, right? There has to be many things come together in order for it to make it profitable, right? And last but not least is the consumer being able and willing to go through that kind of an experience. But it is all factors that have to play. And again, for driving those changes, it has to be a long-term vision, right? You can't step into it saying, okay, next year we're going to be at the end state. By the way, end state is open, right? You don't know where it's going. There's the long-term view, and then make the incremental investments, right? And see the incremental progress as a company and from our consumers over time.
I'll just give you a picture what I think Apple may work on. So if you consider the Apple car in terms of that they have the capabilities to design a beautiful user experience car, I think if Apple is going to do a car, it will be a blockbuster like the iPhone or the iPad or whatever they do on that market. The interesting piece in terms of personalization is if I would let's imagine 5 years from now, you go into Apple store and you see an Apple car there. You go in there and we say, okay, you want to have a seat. And I think immediately it will recognize due to your watch or your phone that is your ID, and it will immediately give you the feeling and personalize the car to your needs, which means it will have your lights, it will have your photos, it will play your music, it will know your places at an instant. And this is how personalization in the future of a car may look like, because you can digitalize certain things and those are not bound to a physical supply chain. So all of a sudden you will have your car, and if it's an automated drive car or an Uber car, it still feels like it's your car, because you have everything in that car. What we try now physically up front, and we cannot change over the life cycle of a car, we could instantly change within a car. And I think this is how personalization will look like in 5 years.
Through these personalization efforts, you're creating a lot of information that you could turn into a service. So another interesting, I think, twist on this is using personalization as creating some new value-added services. And Donna, I think you touched upon this as well. I wonder if you could explain that a little bit more, because this is more about expanding into new sources of revenue and things like that. And you know, you don't think of Levi's as a information service type of a company. So how, help us understand how that would work.
Well, I think first and foremost, I think it's an evolution, right? And I think you have to, and that's what all companies are doing, right? Either the traditional companies like a Levi's or a department store and what have you, or the Googles and the Amazons and what have you. They're all collecting information about who you are, what you want, what you're interested in, etc. Right? And I think and we do that too, right? To the degree that we can. And Levi's at this moment is not a huge data collector yet, right? But if you start thinking about where we want to go in order to tailor our experience, we have to do more of it. And the services that you can provide, I think in Levi's sense, it could be around, if you know what your social demographics look like and your influencers, etc. How can we present you style advice, right, for the product that you want to buy, right? And how do we give that in a non-intrusive way, right, as truly presented as an option at the time that you want it, right? So that we guide you in your commercial shopping experience, right? And but then knowing what your interests are, and not just in the jeans, but overall, we can tailor that in a way that is more attractive to you and more relevant, right? Because we all get too much information already. So if it's not relevant and timed right, you're not going to engage in it. So really doing those types of dynamics is really important. In the Nike context, an example I have there was there's a Nike Plus running app. Anybody running here? Anybody using Nike Plus for tracking your run or something like it, right? But you know which product you're running on, you know how much mileage you're doing, so you can, hey, it's about time to think about a new shoe. You like to run on this shoe? Well, here's the new version of it, right? So really make it, of the thousands of options, here's the 5 that are relevant for you, right? And if you do that in a way that is not creepy, right, then I think you actually have a better consumer experience, because I don't have to shift through, right, 995 other ones that I don't really care about. Right? That's how I think you start thinking about using that personalization and that information. The other end of that is using that information to bring it back into our product development. Right? So if you know what the trends are and what's happening for the consumers, how do you feed it into the early stages of our product design cycles, right? Or maybe supply chain for product quality, right? Because we know what those experiences are. And again, the end result always has to be a better product or a better experience for the consumer. And in all things personalization, if you don't have the consumer first, I think you go down the creepy path really fast.